Welcome back to the Self Trust Solution Podcast. Today's guest is Joe Lalley, writer, workshop facilitator, innovation leader, and the author of Question to Learn: How Curiosity Can Transform Your Career, Team, and Organization. Joe has spent years helping companies unlock creativity and collaboration, but his own story holds something even more powerful: a series of moments where self trust changed the direction of his life, leadership, and work. From leaving behind corporate certainty to start his own business, to rewriting the rules of leadership, to taking the terrifying leap into becoming an author. Joe's journey is a masterclass in trusting your instincts before the evidence arrives. This conversation is for anyone who has felt the nudge to make a bold move, but keeps waiting for permission, clarity, or a sign. Joe shows us what's possible when we let curiosity lead and when we trust ourselves enough to take the next step. Welcome, Joe. We are so excited for you to be here and share your story with us.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I love the topic, and I think it resonates a lot with me and my experiences.
Right? For listeners who are just meeting you, can you share a quick snapshot of what you do today and what the work you love most?
Yeah, absolutely. So, about 5 years ago, I started my own business, which I'm sure we will get into. What I do is I design and facilitate workshops for clients in all types of industries, company sizes. The format of those workshops tends to follow something in the beginning that involves me researching, learning about their customers, learning about their challenges, whoever it is they're trying to improve things for. Then I help the team kind of get close to that information, build empathy for whoever that is. And then we go through a workshop where I have a series of activities that I take people through to really understand and empathize with whoever that is, come up with some ideas, iterate our way through to something that is validated, that will work. And then they leave feeling energized and having something tangible. Usually on the back end of that, I continue to coach teams just to help them keep momentum. So that's probably the bulk of what I do.
Mhm.
I also do some speaking engagements. Those are starting to increase a little bit because I just released my book, Question to Learn, which I'm super excited about. So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing now.
Before you started your business, what did life and work look like? Like, what doubts or fears were present at that time?
Yeah. So, I spent years in the corporate world and large organizations, and I had ups and downs. I always felt a little bit like an oddball in certain situations. I would question, why are we doing this thing? Why have we always done it this way? In some environments that was welcome, and some it wasn't. Um, in maybe the early to mid part of my career, I really started to doubt the validity of my curiosity,
Mhm.
and I held back my questions, and I felt like, well, I'm too junior. I don't really have much to add. These other people, they've got it. They know what they're talking about. So I had a lot of doubts in those areas. As I progressed in my career and achieved more senior roles, I had a little bit more courage to do that sort of thing and try things in different ways.
I love bringing that up
Yeah.
because that is such a way that our self trust erodes when we let other people's sort of disinterest or unappreciation or
Yeah.
just not welcoming our curiosity or our insight. We start to think that it's less important or not valid or even maybe not good, like not
Yeah, not
useful.
welcomed at all.
Right. Which is
Yeah.
so funny because, some of the most innovative thought leadership that people and concepts that are brought in aren't going to be welcomed by the status quo because what's comfortable is what's repeated and
Yeah.
what's
Right,
what
right.
we're
It's
used
going
to.
fine. Why change things?
Right.
Yeah.
And when we don't allow, when we haven't, your questions were probably so piercing in a way to them, right? Because
Yeah.
it questioned what they were comfortable with. And it
Yeah.
didn't make it wrong. It
Right.
made innovative. And
Yeah.
but when we get those questioning, it's very natural for us to tune in and be like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. If everyone else is not appreciating this, maybe these questions aren't right. So,
Yeah.
what shifted? Like, what was the moment or series of moments when you realized that those questions were valid, that
Yeah.
you could implement them and they were useful?
Yeah, it was definitely a series of moments. One was, I'd have a question, maybe I'd ask it, maybe I wouldn't in a meeting. If I was met with, people giving me angry looks or, wondering why I even spoke up, I'd, leave the meeting feeling pretty bad about myself. But I'd go to the kitchen or go to where the coffee room was. And that was always this place where somebody else who was in that meeting would come up to me and say, "Oh, you know what? I had the same question. I'm glad you asked." So I started to kind of find pockets of people that were wondering about things the way I was wondering about them and were, holding back the same way I was. So a big thing for me was just finding people along the way who I could share that curiosity with. And that just gives you courage. That gives you somebody who will probably have your back in a meeting and something like that. So that was something that happened many times, and the more times it happened, the more willing I felt to use that curiosity. Something else that was a more specific moment and really pivotal in my career is I got to attend Stanford University's D School, which is the design thinking school. So they have semester long programs, but attended an executive 3-day boot camp program, and in that program, you'd learn about the principles of design thinking, which really involve empathizing with whoever you're trying to solve for, doing that by speaking with them, asking them questions, learning about them, and then coming up with ideas, but holding those ideas really loosely. So validating your ideas along the way, working in small increments, and all of that involved questions. You had to be curious in order to do that work. And it was so different from what I was used to in my roles before that. I would go into something and feel like I had to have the right answer. People were expected to figure it out. We're solutions oriented, all those things you hear, and it showed me that there was this other way. So it changed the way I worked and really changed the trajectory of my career and ultimately led to me doing the kind of work I do today, which I love. And I feel like I feel like I'm supposed to be the one asking questions. So it's totally flipped.
Well, it's wild, right? So many of us and do come. I was sort of brought up the same way or came up the same way in my corporate jobs of thinking questions were wrong. You were either supposed to know the answer or you should just put your head down and work based on the answers you were already given.
Yeah. Yep.
And I really wonder sometimes where that came from. And what I see now, and I love your input on this, is there are a lot of people who are closed to uncovering their own insecurities about maybe being wrong or not seeing a particular way. And
Yeah.
so you are shut down, like you are discouraged from questioning that way.
Yeah.
So it's more about the people and the systems set up that kind of protect that way that also shuts down not only our own what we can bring different to the table, but also growth and change that could come to the
Yeah.
companies that we worked for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the systems set up, I think, what you just said, I think that's a huge part of it. I think in organizations where there's a really strict adherence to hierarchy,
Mm.
where people join meetings and introduce themselves by their title, that's a clear sign of a real deference to hierarchy. A situation where decisions are run all the way up to whoever the highest ranking member of that team or organization is. Those kinds of things become the pattern and become the culture of the organization. So the leaders feel like, well, this is how it is. I have to be there to make every decision. And I probably will have to make it on limited information, but I will make it and it will be what everyone else does. So that becomes the culture. Further down in levels, what happens is instead of injecting your own thoughts or injecting your own curiosity, people tend to just try to read the boss's mind. They try to think, well, what will that boss want? let's design something they want, which may or may not be what the customers want or the users or whoever you're designing for. So you just change your focus. And it's really hard to break that cycle if the leaders don't start, because it really does kind of come down from them. If you have a leader who can be vulnerable enough to ask questions they don't know the answers to, then that starts to trickle down through the organization. And it shows people that it's okay to do that and you can question to learn. So yeah, that's a lot of what I see is that hierarchy deference.
It's that top down approach to everything, which just is so limiting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So once you made that leap, what shifted, like in your work, your confidence, or your ability to lead yourself?
Yeah. So I was still working in a large organization at the time, and I I reached a point where I didn't enjoy my job. I didn't feel like it mattered. I didn't feel like I was doing work that even took advantage of, my strengths, as, somebody who would think differently and try to inject different thoughts. So I made a decision that I'm going to change my job. And first, that meant looking on all the job boards. I'm going to go somewhere else where I can do this work. But then I thought, what if I kind of change my environment without changing my job? So I went to my boss at the time and I said, "Hey, I've been doing a little bit of this kind of side work where I've been working with internal teams, designing some half day or full day workshops to help them figure out their problems." It was here and there. And I really loved it, got amazing feedback on it. And I said to my boss, "Would you be okay if I expanded this? And I promise I'll get my regular job done, but could this be a thing?" And he was supportive. He was even supportive enough for me to bring some others from my team in who were also interested in that. So that started to happen. And the feedback just encouraged me and encouraged my team to continue to do it. We got to be really in demand in the organization. We were busy enough that at some point there was a big initiative to help people work in the ways we were working. And there was an opportunity to take a new role where I would do that work full time. So I jumped at it and had some of the best years of my career, and really enjoyed it. And, it was just this lesson that you don't necessarily have to do what you think changing your environment is. I sort of did it within. And that work gave me the confidence to eventually start my own business doing that kind of work. So it was all this kind of series of moments. And I'm grateful to that boss who said, "Go ahead, try some of
Yeah.
this stuff."
But you bring up a really important point that we don't have to always change. We don't have to ditch where we are to make it better.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes the greatest change comes from within what's broken, right?
Yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of thinking it has to go away. And I think that's it's really important in today's time that, where we have this whole cancel culture of, and just like completely dismissing people and
Yeah.
practices that we do the best change work from within.
Yeah.
And you proved that true. And we're able to change, it sounds like a culture of a company, and then go out and do it more broadly for more people. But you started where you were.
Yeah. 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 It was one of these paths that I did not predict at all.
Yeah.
I felt like the one thing, I trusted myself to be able to figure things out. I feel like
Mhm.
I've always been a figure it out kind of person,
Yeah.
whether it's, fixing the water pump on my washing machine through YouTube videos or, figuring out how to roll out a new offering at a company. I trusted myself that I would figure it out. And I had no idea which direction it would go, but that helped keep me going.
Yeah. So writing a book actually brings up a lot of doubts, right?
Yes, very
I
much.
I jump to that because I think where we can sometimes get confused with self-trust is as if we have it or we don't. And each new thing that I think we all have it, by the way. And that's a message that I always share. So I always encourage people to go and look for all the ways that you already do trust yourself. You already are trustworthy so that you can connect to that. But also, we can think that self trust means we don't have any doubts ever. But our trust is tested, if you will, it's stretched every time we come up against something new.
Yeah.
And so, what were the biggest fears or hesitations that you had before committing to writing the book?
Um, no one would care. That was a big one. I'd I'd write the book and no one would care. That was a fear.
Yeah. You know how many people tell me that same fear about a lot of different things,
Oh,
not
yeah.
just writing books, but no one will care. Posting on social media, no one will care. This product that I have, no one will care. This offer I have, no one will care. It's a common one, everyone. So
Yes,
you're not
yeah.
alone.
It's okay. It's okay to feel that way. Um, so the way I worked through a lot of those doubts and up to the point where I said, "I am writing this book," um, a few things gave me the confidence along the way. So about 8 years or so ago, I started to write articles. I've always really enjoyed writing. I
Mhm.
just I like the process of figuring out what I think about things and how to articulate them, and I feel like I do that better writing than in conversation or other methods. So I really always enjoyed it, and at the same time, I had all these kind of questions about why do we do these things this way? What if we tried another way? And I would start writing about them and just sort of getting them out there, getting them off my chest. But what I found is that a lot of people, these things resonated with a lot of people. So people would write me back and say, or comment on my stories and say, I felt like I was reading my own story. I've totally gone through that. So the more I did that, and the more feedback I got, the more I did it. So it just was this sort of cycle. So at some point, I started to think, well, could I put a lot of this into a book? Could this actually be a collection of ideas and stories that could really help people? Um, and the way I thought about it, so your point of, doubt or trust or self trust are not these sort of like, yes or no things. I think a lot in scenarios. So I thought the best thing that could happen if I write this book is, Oprah loves it and it's a bestseller and I get all these speaking engagements and I'm on podcasts everywhere and all these kinds of things. And then the worst that could happen, I thought, is I'll have figured out what I think about a lot of these things and I'll be able to articulate them, which is really valuable to me in my work and my business. So I said, well, that is worth it. That is worth trying. I still didn't know which direction it was going to go, but I trusted myself to kind of figure it out as I went. It was harder than I thought, which I'm glad I didn't know how hard it was going to be. But these things where that helped me.
I love it that you actually walk your talk, right? Like you are questioning yourself even through the process of writing the book. Like these are the doubts that I have. Let's even question them. Okay, here's the worst case, here's the best case. Either way, what am I willing to for both of those to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes we fear even the best case. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, yeah. Right. Right. It's too much. Imposter syndrome, all those
Right.
things. Yeah.
Success intolerance.
Yeah.
And so it's all uncomfortable. That's what I tell people all the time. It's all the best case scenario is going to be uncomfortable. The worst case scenario is going to be uncomfortable. But with the trust and like really looking at it, questioning it as you did, you can decide, am I in for it? And
Yeah.
that's the best question that you can answer. And once you do, it sounds like a book comes out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what
Amazing.
changed after the book came out, whether in opportunities or confidence or identity?
Yeah. So some things started to change even once I announced to people that I was writing a book. One of the first things I did is I invited people to become beta readers. I wanted to follow the process I help clients follow, which is work in increments, get feedback along the way. Don't try to perfect it before anyone sees it. So I started to write chapters or segments of the book, and people who agreed to be beta readers and give me feedback, I would send it to them and they would tell me this made sense or I understood this or this resonated. So that process started to show a lot of return. So even before it was written, I was learning, well, how might I write this book and what kind of stories might I tell? So that started to change things a bit. And I also started to develop relationships with people I hadn't talked with in 10 years. I mean, former colleagues, former clients, friends. because I put this out to a lot of people on LinkedIn and other places, and people who I didn't expect responded, and then I reignited these relationships, which was amazing. That helped me all the way through to finalizing the book, to going through the process of picking a cover. I asked people for feedback on the cover options,
Mm.
and I factored all that in. So rekindling these relationships was huge. Since the book has come out, there's been a big increase in just being invited to speak at things. These topics, I think, are people say are really relevant now, especially as AI is everywhere. I mean, every organization is trying to figure out, how do we use it? Where do we use it? How do we get started? Individuals are struggling with it, and a lot of people are talking about how there's this great opportunity to use the power of AI and all the information it can gather, all the processing it can do, and combine that with just human critical thinking, human curiosity, which is a lot of what my book is about. So I've found a lot of interest in just coming into organizations and bringing that side of the equation. So that's been really fun. I've also, gotten to meet a lot of people like you through these sorts of formats. I really enjoy talking to new people about these topics, and sort of how your podcast focuses on self-trust. I think it's a perfect topic for a lot of the stuff I've thought about. And it's also led to more writing. So I've been writing some guest articles for a variety of publications, which feeds that need to write now that the book is written. So yeah, a lot has changed. A lot has changed. And I'm sure a lot more will change.
So one of the misconceptions about self-trust sometimes is that you have to figure it out on your own, have to do it on your own. And there is a piece where we can outsource too much of our own wisdom, our own critical thinking, where we rely on others people's input or validation. But there's a big difference between seeking data from others, like you did for your book,
Yep.
and what you do through your questioning and working with people. I'd love for you to help us distinguish between them, where the difference between seeking outside information from a place of self trust versus one of needing someone else to tell you what to do.
Yeah. Yep. I think a lot about this one. So I think it comes down to the the level of gravity you put on a decision.
Mm.
So I think decisions are treated like this huge moment in time. We have to make a decision. And I just think decisions aren't actually the most important thing. The thing you do after making the decision is the most important thing. So I think a decision helps you move forward. So you can gather lots of opinions and background and data from people, different sources, and that will help you make a decision based on the information you have at that time. As soon as you make that decision, you're going to get more information, and it may show you you were on the right track. If you continue, it may show you that you were a little off track and you can make a little pivot. So I think if you lower the level of importance you put on the actual moment of deciding, then it becomes a lot easier.
Mm.
And you can take input from people as just information, and you can sort of choose what you allow to influence that decision. I had a boss once, a CEO of a big organization. He was super well accomplished. I mean, known in the industry, and he would often say, "I reserve the right to change my mind when I see new information." And it just showed me that he had to make all these incredibly difficult decisions every day, but the next day he might change his mind. And he justified that with, "Well, I know something I didn't know yesterday." So
Of
I think
course.
that's really important.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a three-part process that all three pieces are necessary. And this is what we teach at the self trust coach of make decisions, follow through, and have your own back. And making firm aligned decisions and then seeing what comes up or following through on that is going to give you the data. That's what having your own back is. It means using that data for evaluation, not drama, not to beat yourself up, and celebrate the fact that one, you have the most amazing gift to make decisions, follow through, and then use that to change your mind, to take it a different direction, to elevate it or to leave it. And so, yes, and sometimes we put so much as if making decisions is the like it's a make or break moment. It's not. It's just a way to give us more information about ourselves, about the process we're on, about the path, so that we can continue making the next decision that's going to move us forward.
Yep.
So I love that. If you could go back to one of those before versions of yourself, unsure or hesitant or waiting, what would you want him to know next?
Um, I'd probably say if you're wondering about something, you're not the only one. I think I
Mm,
would say that. That once I realized that, I just felt it just gave me some a little bit more license to speak up and try new things.
yeah. And here's the other thing, you're giving other people permission to stand up and ask those questions too. You're not just giving them the answers through your question that they were hoping to get to. You're
Yeah.
showing them that it's okay to question. So, for listeners, what's one small practical way they can begin practicing this week? Self talk
So
or moving forward. Yeah.
yeah, I'll give everybody a question that I think can work in the corporate world and personal situations, and it opens up a lot of pathways. So, um, how did you come to feel that way? Is the question. So very often, we may learn something about another person and just say, "Oh, that's great. Well, let me swap my story now with you about how I, did a certain thing."
Mm,
Instead of doing that, instead of doing the story swap, learn a little bit more. How did you come to feel that way? I love skiing. Okay, how did you come to feel that way? Then you start to learn about how they got to that point. Um, if you're in maybe a business setting, and if you're interacting with a customer and they say, "Oh, I hate this product." Oh, how did you come to feel that way? Instead of trying to convince them they shouldn't hate it, how did you come to feel that way? Because then you can learn, oh, it was this part or the onboarding or the button didn't work or whatever it was. You can learn more about it. So, how did you come to feel that way is a really good one. The other thing it opens up. So, in situations where maybe you really disagree with someone on the surface level. So, somebody feels one way about something, you feel the total opposite. It's easy to just tell each other you were wrong. But if one person could say, "Well, how did you come to feel that way?" I bet you after a few more questions, you can find some common ground. There's
mm.
probably something you do agree on. So that's my tip.
Love that tip. How did you come to feel that way? Tell us a little bit more about your book and where people can connect with you.
Yeah, so it's called Question to Learn. It's not your typical business book or self-help book. It's probably somewhere in the middle.
Hybrid.
It's very story a hybrid, yes. Very story based. A lot of my stories, a lot of stories from people I interviewed, with a lot of real tangible, tactical things that you can try that are alternatives to the way maybe things are being done. So you can buy it anywhere that you buy books. If you're interested in connecting with me or learning more about me, my website, joelalley.com, is a great place for that, or LinkedIn. I love to talk about this stuff. So if anybody would like to reach out, even just to chat, please do.
I love that. Tell me, like, if you could define like the ideal person who like needs this book, who are they? Like, what are they experiencing right now or thinking, or what would the
Yeah.
who is looking for this?
Yeah.
It may not
So
know it.
what's that?
It may not know it, right?
They may not know it.
Yeah.
I think so this is what I've heard from people who are just kind of feeling stuck in the cycle of doing the same thing over and over,
Mhm.
whether that's in their career, their personal life, their team, their organization. If they're feeling like we need a jolt, we need something to kind of break us out of this cycle. I've seen that with teams who just have a hard time communicating with each other. I've
Mm,
seen it with teams where maybe they've merged with another team and they're trying to just figure out how do we do this. I've seen it with people who are changing careers. What am I really good at? What do I enjoy? What's in demand? Answering those questions can lead you to maybe something new. So I think it's people who are kind of feeling stuck in the same cycle are people who I think would benefit from reading this.
yeah. And it seems sometimes that we ask, I hate to say right or wrong, but we don't ask very productive questions of ourselves. And so, would you say this book is helping ask questions that will maybe dig deeper or be more fruitful than what the common questions we normally ask ourselves?
Yeah. Um, so the simple thing, and this was also a hesitation about writing the book at all, is it comes down to the simplest motive for questioning. Do I not know? Do I want to know? Then I ask.
Mhm.
And, we all did this as 5-year-olds. We didn't have negative motives for ourselves or for others. So if you can really boil things down to just that motive, then I think you're in a really good position. The other thing I do is I point out some negative motives for questioning because I think it's helpful to know, what's on the other end of the spectrum. And I call out some things that I named. So something like I called it the hero question. So if you're in a situation, maybe working on a project for a team or working on something personal, and you jump all the way to, well, how will we scale this idea? Or how will we get this out to the world? And doing that before maybe you've figured out what this even is or what it's even solving for. I call it the hero question because it feels like this big visionary thing. Oh, well, look how big I'm thinking. I'm way ahead of all of you. But it stops progress because it focuses on, let me get this thing out to everybody, but I don't even know what this thing is yet. So I think, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's the unspoken questions. So those are ones we've talked about already, just things that are in your mind that you hold back because you feel like everyone else knows the answer. This is stupid to ask. I don't want to draw attention to myself. Finding your people, helping give you a little bit of courage and support can help with that.
Definitely. And I think for sure, I 100% agree about the motive behind the question because we can ask a simple question that I call it's just not productive. Like, why isn't this working? And there's really no curiosity behind that question. Usually it's just actually asking, why am I broken or why is this broken?
Yeah.
It doesn't really look for true fix. And so when we can be a little more um, add some true curiosity to that and
Yeah.
have a motive of wanting to learn from ourselves is one that I just love. Like if you can actually, I really want to learn from myself of why this isn't working. What about it is working? What isn't? And just make your questions a little more productive. Sounds like Joe's book can definitely help you do that. Joe, thank you for bringing so much honesty and practical wisdom to this conversation. Your story is such a powerful reminder that self trust isn't about being fearless. It's about being willing to question the old way, willing to try something new, willing to bet on the voice inside you even before the results show up. So if Joe's story sparked something for you, share this episode with a friend who's standing on the edge of their own big decision. And if you want tools to build your own self trust cycle, head to the selftrustcoach.com. Joe's book Question to Learn is available wherever books are sold and Amazon. Make sure to
Yes.
grab your copy. Until next time, trust yourself. You're more ready than you think. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Don.